Very warm welcome to you. My name is Austin Salas. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and today I want to talk about survival and how our mind uses this primitive instinct both to our advantage, but mostly to our disadvantage. You see, the mind has one main goal. Our genes care solely about one thing, and that is survival. And everything that we do in our lives, all of the actions that we take, the decisions that we make, the thoughts that we have, the emotions that are elicited are all guided unconsciously by this need for survival. And although we don't live in primitive times anymore where we're being threatened by other animals or threatened by other tribes, the modern day and age comes with its own challenges. Our survival is the main priority, yet the way in which the mind primes us for survival in today's day and age can look a lot like anxiety, can look like self-medicating, can look like procrastinating, can look like any one of these bad habits that we exhibit, and I'll explain why. You see, survival essentially means safety. What is the safest thing that we can do to ensure that we continue to function optimally, to ensure that we continue to evolve and move our genes forward? One of the reasons why people never do what they say they're going to do, why they never approach and talk to that person they find attractive, why they stay in jobs they don't like, why they stay in relationships they don't like, why they never go through on their word, is because that is the safest option for them. If our mind, which always does, can find even the slightest reason to convince us not to get out of our comfort zone, then the survival instinct is achieved. Hypothetically speaking, it is safer for me to be on my couch eating Ben and Jerry's, binge watching Netflix, than having to put my body through rigorous disciplines of the gym, than having to deprive my palate of salts and sugars by eating healthy, than having to invest time, money, and energy into getting back into shape because that is what's most comfortable. It is safer for me to be anxious than to put myself out there, than to be seen, than to be heard. Because what if I'm not accepted? What if people don't like me? And what if I don't make others feel good, right? I always say that those of us who suffer from anxiety are mind readers. Like, why is this person always looking at me like that? Do they not like how I look? Is it the way that I'm standing? Do they think I'm awkward? They probably don't like me. They probably think I'm weird, etc. So, anxiety, although detrimental to our nervous system, is much safer than having to deal with all those intrusive thoughts and feelings if I were to put myself out there. Those of us who grew up in households where we were scolded, humiliated, hit, spanked as children, it's always going to be safer for us to criticize ourselves. That is our model of understanding. We criticize ourselves because we fear the criticism of others. And I actually had a client tell me during our session, word for word, I just realized that I've critiqued myself harsher than anyone else has in my entire life. So the safety mechanism is to critique yourself harder than anyone else so that other people's words about you won't hurt as much. Those of us who have been in toxic relationships or who are currently in them, it is safer for us to be with someone who treats us poorly than to be alone. We can let that sink in for a moment. I've worked with someone recently who didn't know how to say no, who didn't know how to set boundaries for herself. She couldn't bring herself to leave the toxic relationship because she couldn't bear the thought of being alone, because that meant abandonment. And she equates abandonment with the fact that her father left her when she was younger. So in this case, it's safer for her to be in this toxic environment than to have to deal with the pain of being abandoned and left. The interesting part about this survival mechanism we have is that it rarely has to do with our circumstance, with the external world, and has everything to do with our inner reality, the lens in which we view the world, our perceptions, associations, beliefs about ourselves, emotions, thoughts. Our whole inner reality, this dynamic, is what determines for the most part whether we feel safe or not. Humans average about 60,000 thoughts every day, and about 95% are repetitive thoughts, and about 80% of those repetitive thoughts are negative. So, this further proves the point that your life may look like a series of negative or positive external events and circumstances, but in reality, what determines whether you have a pleasant or unpleasant experience all comes down to the contents of your mind. Your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the joyful is determined by the perspective you choose. I'm not here to tell you how to perceive your life. I only want to present two options, which you don't have to believe, yet if you want to, you can verify them for yourself. Number one, you can continue to go on throughout your life feeling the way you're feeling. I mean, you've done it for long enough and now you're probably pretty good at it. Or number two, you can begin having those honest conversations with yourself or with someone you trust about what's going on. The illusion here is that we think that we can avoid these conversations because they're difficult to have. Yet, in actuality, what's difficult is living in survival, living in safety mode, and having to be subject to what's going on up here. So, I hope that we can see by these examples how this primitive survival instinct objectively plays its part. It has a role. It wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us in procreating, evolving. Yet, subjectively, this can present itself in many different detrimental ways. A lot of the times, the symptoms that we exhibit are to prevent us from feeling more pain. And so it's easier for us to live with our symptom than to solve it. That's the illusion. It's easy for me to live, and again, it's not not that I'm saying it's easy, but it's the default thing that we do, living with these symptoms because we're avoiding something that's even more painful. So with all that being said, I hope you found something valuable here. My name is Austin Salas. I will see you in my next video. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you.